Hi, welcome to Session 3 of the SAP Partner Marketing Catalyst program. In Session 3, we're going to talk about packaging your business. So why does this matter? Well, again, go back to where we first started in Session 1, where we introduced our definition of marketing. And remember, we said that marketing is getting people with a need for your product or service to know, like, and trust you. So far, we've talked about some of the things that you need to do to set a foundation for building that know, like, and trust, if you like. We've talked about focusing on the ideal client, determining who is your ideal target market. We then talked about building your core marketing positioning. We talked about the concept of differentiating your business so that people can very, very quickly and easily see why they should do business with you, why they should choose your product or service over your competitors. So we've laid down that foundation, and what we're really going to start focusing on now is some of the more tactical aspects of the marketing process, if you like. Again, remember, we talked about the importance of strategy before tactics. So we've now laid down our strategy. We now know who we're going to talk to. We now know what we're going to say to them. So now we're really going to focus on some of those tactical aspects, like how are we going to say that? So why is packaging important? Why is packaging your business important? Well, this is all about building trust. If you think about what it is that we do as SAP employees, as SAP partners, what do you do as an SAP partner? You might deploy business intelligence solutions. You might be selling SAP Business All-in-One, Business by Design, or SAP Business One. Now, if you think about it, how many times a year do you go through that process of helping a prospective customer choose a solution and then deploying it? Chances are you're probably doing it maybe at least 7, 8 times a year. So you know the process inside out. You know what it is you do. You know your implementation process. You know exactly what's going to happen in the sales cycle. You know what's going to happen during the go live. You've got complete understanding of all of that. Now, put yourself in the shoes of your prospect. How many times a year do they go through this process? Well, probably no more than, they probably don't go through this process any more than once every 5 years if they're lucky. Because remember, if you think about it, most business solutions, company will keep that business solution for between 5 to 7 years. So they don't necessarily position or see themselves as being experts in the process. So what's going through their mind as they're engaging in this process of selecting a new business management solution? Well, they're worried about what's going to happen during the process. They're worried about what's going to happen if they make a bad decision. Maybe they've been involved in the selection of an ERP or a business intelligence solution in the past, and it hasn't gone particularly well. So not only do you have to overcome the current fears, their current concerns, but you've also potentially got that historical baggage, if you like, that they bring with them to the selection process. So right now, what you need to do is you need to overcome that. You need to build that trust, and in many cases, it can be quite difficult because of that history. So how do you do it? Let's take one step back. Why do people come to you? They come to you because you are the expert. You are the expert in deploying cloud-based ERP systems. You're the expert in, understanding a business's requirements and translating that into a business intelligence system that works for them. So they come to you because they want your expertise. You know things that they don't. So then how do you build that trust? Well, you build that trust by giving them the information that you have. So how do you do that? This is where we start talking about packaging your business to build trust. Packaging up the different things that you do to make it easy for your prospective customer to understand. Let's take a classic example. The best example that I can think of is your implementation process. Now, with the different SAP products that we have different implementation processes that we as SAP offer to you as a partner. So for example, if you are deploying business all-in-one, you might be using the ASAP focus methodology. If you're deploying SAP Business One, you might be using the accelerated implementation program. What are both of these things? Well, they consist of a series of steps that are designed to walk a prospective customer, or not to walk a prospective customer, rather to take an actual customer through that entire implementation process in a structured format so that you know exactly what's going to happen each step along the way. So if you're trying to differentiate yourself and all your competitors have an implementation process, well, one of the things you need to do is determine how can you package up your implementation process and use that to differentiate yourself. And then explain to your prospective customer what's going to happen during the implementation process. Because again, what are you trying to deal with here? You are trying to overcome that perception, that fear that they have that something's going to go wrong. So let's take your implementation process, for example. You might use the Accelerate implementation process, and many Business One partners I talk to, that's what they do. So if everybody does the same thing, how does a potential customer differentiate? Well, they can't. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is think about their business. Think about how they can package or how they can present the accelerated implementation process a little bit differently. So let's say you are looking at the rapid implementation process. Because that's fundamentally what all of these implementation approaches are about. They're about doing things quickly. How do you get things done quickly? You get it done quickly because you've got a predefined process that you've done many times before. So let's say, for example, my business is called Accel Business Solutions, ACCEL. Now, I'm well positioned there because I've got a word already in my business name that means fast. Accel meaning accelerated. So the trick here is to try and match all of these things together, your business name, your implementation process, and tell a consistent story. So then if you think about it, Accel Business Solutions is my company name. I'm offering the accelerated implementation process. So what if, for example, you were to package up the accelerated implementation process and you were to call it RAPID, R-A-P-I-D. So what you can do when you're presenting your implementation process, you might be in front of a prospective customer, and then you can say, what I'd like to do is explain to you our implementation process. Now, our implementation process is called RAPID. Now, why is it called RAPID? Well, RAPID consists of 5 steps. Let me take you through them. The first step in our RAPID implementation methodology is to review. So that's the R in RAPID. Now, what you might normally do here is you would have some props that you would use to explain your implementation methodology. So you might have a whiteboard. So you'd go up and you'd write this out on the whiteboard, because again, remember, what do we teach in Demonstrating to Win? This is what we call a limbic technique, keeping people engaged, keeping them focused, by utilizing a number of these different presentation props. So I'm going to move just a little bit here. What you would do is you would go up and you would write on the flip chart or the whiteboard, so you'd write R. So what is the R in RAPID? So the R in RAPID, again, stands for review. During the review process, we're going to come in and sit down and go through all of your processes with your people to determine what are the areas where you believe you need to get some business improvement. After we've gone that, we then move to the next stage in our RAPID process, which is assess. So you then write up the A for assess. During the assessment process, we take all of those notes and all of that feedback that we've gathered as a result of that discovery process with your team, we bring that back into our organization and we do a complete debrief. We bring all of our consultants together. So let's say, for example, you have 5 consultants. Each of those consultants has on average 5 years of experience. So you can then say to your prospect, during the assess phase, we bring 25 years of experience in deploying these systems to bear specifically on your project. And we determine what it is that we believe we need to do to get you the outcome that you're looking for. Then in the next stage, which is the propose stage, that's what the P in RAPID stands for, propose. What we're going to do, we're going to come back and we're going to run through with you our proposal for the implementation. We're going to explain to you how we're going to implement the solution. We're going to get your agreement on the things that we need to do and the things that you need to do. The next stage in our RAPID process is the I, and that's where we implement. During the implementation phase, we're going to take the things that we have already agreed upon and we're going to put those into place into your business. And again, you'll remember that in the first 3 stages, we've collected that information, we've analysed it, we've assessed it, and now we're going through that process of doing the implementation. So the final stage in the RAPID implementation process, which is the D, and you'll write that up on your whiteboard, the D, that stands for debrief. What do we do in the debrief? Well, fundamentally, we go and we review, now that you've gone live with your system, we review what's working well, what's not working, what needs to be changed. So what you've fundamentally done is you've now taken a process, the accelerated implementation process, you've given it a new name, RAPID. It links into your business name, Accel Business Solutions. So you're now starting to package up what you do. Now think about it. What have I now done? By the way, I made all of that up on the spot. But the idea behind this is now, by packaging up that implementation process, giving it a name, guess what? Everybody in your organisation, from your receptionist through to a support consultant, can now quickly and easily articulate your implementation process. Think about it. Everyone's out on site. The receptionist is there and she gets a phone call from the Chief Financial Officer at your prospect's business, and he says, hey, I've got to go into a board presentation and I can't quite remember the implementation process that you have. Well, guess what? Now, everybody in the organisation can quickly, easily, even if they're not an implementation person, they can quickly and easily articulate what goes on in that process. So all they have to do is remember that it's RAPID. RAPID, and then it automatically stimulates them to think about what are the steps. R, review. A, assess. P, propose. I, implement. D, debrief. And the names of the steps tell you what happens in there. So worst case scenario, everybody, even the receptionist in your organisation, can now quickly and easily explain what your implementation process is. Can they do that today? Again, you've made it incredibly easy. And now your prospect understands what the process is. You've given it a name, which is RAPID. So again, you're reinforcing in their mind that this is going to happen quickly. You've outlined every single one of those steps, which makes sense, and you've explained what's going to happen. So what you now need to do is take that process and document it. And guess what? You can now start to take that process and you can turn that into a series of marketing documents. We're going to talk about this, the importance of creating marketing materials that educate. But that's what this is fundamentally about. So you can explain why it's important to have all of these steps in your implementation process. And guess what? You can start writing blogs, white papers, utilising your implementation methodology as an example. So you could, let's say, start writing white papers, for example, the 5 key steps you need to have in an implementation process. Now, when you write that white paper, do you specifically say RAPID? No, you don't. What you do is you talk about what happens in each one of those stages without referencing your specific process, without referencing your specific branding, which, by the way, you can go out and trademark. Get a graphic designer to build a logo that then relates to that specific process. I went through this recently in China where we had a similar example. Just think about it. What can you do with that logo to again reinforce this concept that it's all about speed? It's all about speed, but it's based on speed with process. All right? So you do up a logo for that. But anyway, you then take that information and you build that white paper explaining why you need those 5 steps. And then right at the end, you might put a little one paragraph which says, at Excel Business Solutions, we have an implementation process which we use called Rapid, which is really based on this whole concept of needing to have these 5 key steps. To learn more about our implementation process or to talk to one of our team about a business solution, please contact inquiries at excelbusinesssolutions.com or whatever the case may be. So what have you done? You've taken a process which you understand, but it's a process which your prospect does not. Why? Because they're not professionals at implementing business solutions. They do this once every 5 to 7 years. You do it every day. But what you've done is you've made it easy for them to understand. You've taken away the mystery, if you like, about this implementation process. What's going to happen as a result of that? Well, chances are the level of trust that they have for your business has now gone up. Because again, you've put their minds at ease by explaining what's going on. You've helped them understand how you're going to reduce the risk of something going wrong during the implementation process. So that's what this concept of packaging your business is all about. It's all about building trust. So what we've just done is give you an example of utilizing your process or packaging up your process and utilizing that as a marketing tool. So there's a bunch of other things that have an impact on how you package your business. So if you think about it, these are some of the more traditional aspects that you might consider when you're talking about marketing. So, what are some of those things that we're talking about? Well, your stationery, your business cards, your logo, the way your offices look, the way your people are presented, the way your proposals look. All of these things are really, really critical. Now, one thing you'll notice that I've done a little bit differently from the previous sessions is for today's session, I'm actually wearing my SAP branded shirt. So, question for you. Do you have all of your people wearing some kind of uniform or some kind of branded representation of your organization? Now, you might sit there and think, well, that's not appropriate for our business. We don't do that. Even the most high end of businesses can potentially benefit from something like this. Even if it's a pin, a gold pin or a company logo pin, if all your people wear business suits all the time, then give them that logo pin. Yeah, so all of these things are really, really important when you're starting to think about building in the mind of your potential customer a way of differentiating your organization from everybody else. So let's talk about a couple of those things as we get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the name of your company. Now, again, I'm not proposing that you should go and change your company name. I'm not proposing that you should go and change your company logo. I'm not proposing that you should go and change the colors that you use to represent your company. What I am proposing, though, is you think about each one of these things. Maybe there's a good reason to do something like that. Maybe there's a good reason to change your company name. Maybe there's a good reason to change the logo or the colors that you use that represent your organization. Only you will know if that is the appropriate thing to do and the time is right, it makes sense, and you can afford to go through that process. So what I do want to do is give you some hints and tips and a little bit of a backgrounder that you can then use if you determine, yeah, you know what, it's time for me to do something about that. So as we go through and you look at some of the slides, hopefully that will give you some guidance to how to think about these processes. For example, recognition of your products or services. Is it really clear what your organisation does? Think about differentiation. Does the name of your business clearly spell out what it is that you do? I'm going to use non-SAP partner type businesses as examples for this because I think it helps to draw the picture much more clearly. If you were a legal firm with Smith, Jones and Williams, okay, and you specialised in helping consumers with traffic violations, well, instead of calling yourself Smith, Jones and Williams, maybe the name Traffic Violation Busters might be a little bit better. Now, if your customers are Fortune 500 companies, you probably wouldn't want to call yourself Traffic Violation Busters. But again, it's the concept that I want to get across to you about thinking of, making sure that people can very clearly identify what it is that you do. And again, go back to our core marketing position. What do you do for a living? Does your business name reflect that? Think about your target market. So if you were, again, crazy example, if you were a hair salon and your primary target market was, higher income, more upscale ladies who were going to come in and use your hair salon, then the name Smitty's Hair Palace might not necessarily be the best name for your business. So you've got to think about all of these things. Now, hopefully you'll start to understand why the first two sessions were really focused on your target market and differentiation, because you cannot really go through these tactical processes unless you've got those pieces right. Unless you know who your target market is, how can you determine what name is going to work most effectively? Unless you know your target market, how can you determine what colours you should use to appeal to that target market? How you should prepare and present your proposals when your people are dressing to go and present a proposal or go and meet with your customers. Unless you know who your target market is and you're focused on that target market, if your target market is small businesses, let's say, small mechanics that operate out of little industrial centres, would your people go dressed up in a three-piece suit and tie? No, they wouldn't, okay? But the kind of clothes that I'm wearing now might be appropriate. No tie, but again, a logoed shirt. So again, important to think about all of these different areas. Next thing I'd like you to think about is the impact of images. So on the slide you're looking at the moment, I've got a couple of examples. Now, all of these examples are for companies that are financial planners or accountants. So look at the first one. The first one, Chris Eccles and Associates. When you look at that logo, what does that make you think about that organisation? Potentially it makes you think that they are a little bit more modern, a little bit more up to date. If you look at the second one, which is Mustang Accounting, okay, you got the picture there of the horse, the name, you're kind of thinking it's a little bit wild, maybe they're a little bit, I would hesitate to use the word, well no, I will use it, maybe they're cowboys. Maybe they're the cowboys of the accounting fraternity because they think a little bit differently. They're willing to push the boundaries a little bit with their approach to the business. Look at the next one, which is the Bookworks. So that's a very modern looking logo, all right? The final one, which is not, well, it's my favourite, not because it's good, it's my favourite because it's just so plain. The one there we've got for Llewellyn and Associates, it's very, very clear. They've put absolutely no effort into it. It is very no frills. It is a no frills logo, and potentially that might be the image that they're looking to put across to their clients. So a very simple logo done in Times Roman and italics, maybe that's perfect for the image that they're trying to get across. Hopefully you understand, just using those simple examples, how important this thing is about logos and business names. When I talk to partners, oftentimes, and I say, what is your business name? And they'll tell me their business name, and I say, well, what does that name mean? Why did you call the business that? A lot of the time, they say, oh, well, we just sat around and somebody came up with this idea of a name and that's what we decided to use. Other people, they'll say, oh, yeah, well, that logo, it was a piece of clip art I found in an office clip art library or something like that. Now, sometimes with a little bit of work, you can actually take something that's pre-existing and shape it around a particular story or shape it around what it is that your organisation does, your target market, and so on and so forth. But with those things, it's usually best, as Stephen Covey, the guy who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says, begin with the end in mind. All right? Start thinking about your target market and then look at how you present yourself. What kind of logo do I need to have? What should the business name look like? And so on and so forth. A little note, a little word on colour. Colour is incredibly important. And I'm no colour expert, I'm no graphic design expert, but there are a number of different websites that you can refer to with people who are experts on the subject of colour and thinking about which colours work best for different kinds of markets. So if you take a look at this slide, I've given you a URL of a particular lady who focuses on nothing but the importance and the impact of colour. So if that's something you're thinking about, check out that website, have a quick look through it. She's got some great content there that can really help you think about the colours that you should be using to represent your organisation. So now we've talked about naming your business, logos, colours. Let's drop back again because I'd like to quickly touch on some other ways that we can use process as a marketing tool. The example I gave you when we started was the example of your implementation process, and we went through that if you like, that step-by-step description of why that matters and how to build a name and package up that implementation process. What are the other areas in your business that you can take that same concept and apply it to? Think about it. Every time you come into contact with a customer or a potential customer and you execute a systematic approach to something or you execute a standard way of doing something, great opportunity to package that up. Some examples, your sales call, okay? When you go out and you are going to visit a prospective customer. Now, many customers will already be a little bit wary about having a salesperson come out and talk to them. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to explain to them what's going to happen when you come out. And maybe you need to give your sales process a name, or at the bare minimum, articulate what's going to happen during that sales call. So you could call your sales call our 3-step implementation needs analysis, or our 5-step business process review. Okay, I'm pausing a little bit as I think about these things because, I like to try and apply these concepts. So I'd like to try and think of them as we go through. So that's from a sales perspective. And then you explain what's going to happen. So when you've got the potential client on the phone and you're saying, well, what I'd like to do is come out and spend some time with you going through our 3-step business process review. What's going to happen during that 3-step business process review? First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what it is that you're using today. We're going to understand what's driving that need for change for you. The second step we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things which we have to offer in our product portfolio. And then the third step we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the timing, the time frame that you want this process to operate according to get you from where you are today to where you want to be in the future. And we're going to identify where it is that you want to be in the future, because obviously at the end of the day, if there is no business value from what we have to offer you, there won't really be any reason for us to work together. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Is that okay if we take that approach? Yes, it is. Fantastic. So then I'll be out to see you on Thursday at 9 a.m. and we'll go through that process review. Now, one thing I'd like to do before I come out there, just to give you some things to think about, I'd like to send you out a little questionnaire, which is going to identify 4 or 5 questions that we have determined are really, really critical in making sure that you get the best usage of our time together and that we are able to understand as quickly as possible how we can deliver value to you. So I'm going to send that out to you. If you could take the time just to fill that in before I get there, that would be perfect. And then just email it back or fax it back to the number that's on there. Is that okay if I ask you to do that? Great, thank you very much. So again, if the prospective customer says, no, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not interested in filling out a form. No, I don't want to give you that information. What are you then thinking as a salesperson? Well, maybe this isn't necessarily a genuine opportunity here. Again, you will know what works for you and what doesn't. But what have we done here? We've packaged up a process. We've explained to the potential customer what's going to happen, makes it easier to get their agreement to progress. And you've also given them a task, which is kind of like a pre-qualification task as well. So you've asked them to fill out this questionnaire. It's going to give you information they need, and it's going to give them something to think about. So that's an example of how something as basic as a sales call can be packaged up, give it a name, our 3-step business process review, and deliver value to your prospective customer and get value for yourself. What are some of the other areas? Maybe the way you do your, your support calls. Maybe the way that you handle a support call. The fact that you ask somebody to log a support message on the web first. That support message then goes through level 1 support. They then determine what needs to be done. That support message then goes through to level 2 support if required. And then maybe it might result in having to send a consultant out on site. So if you think about it, there are 4 potential steps in that process. So potentially you might come up with your 4-step process and you might call it, again, just off the top of my head, LIFT. So then you can say, let me explain to you how our 4-step support process works. Now, our 4-step support process is called LIFT, because what's it about? It's actually about helping you lift that problem off your shoulders and really put it onto ours, because that's what you want from a support perspective. So let me tell you about our process. So the L in LIFT, obviously first thing, we need to listen to what the problem is. Now, part of that listening process involves you logging that support call. The second stage, the I in LIFT, stands for investigate. So the purpose of getting you to log that support call is that we can get the right person inside our organisation to take that support call and do their investigation. After we've done that, the F stands for follow-up. So what we're then going to do after we've done that investigation, we're going to come back and we're going to follow up on that with you. We're going to make sure that we've got all the right information we need in order to solve that problem for you. And the final T in LIFT is treat. What's this about? Well, we're going to treat the problem. Same way as, for example, a doctor might. After they've gone through that interview, they've gone through that process and they've determined what the problem is, then they're going to treat it. Now, what might that need to look like? That could be something as simple as us logging onto your system, running a script or taking some kind of action, or it could be that you may need one of our people to come out on site. But we have a 4-step process that we use. Why is that important to you? Well, because it means that you can be sure that we have a standard systematic way of dealing with your support calls, which makes sure that nothing slips through the cracks and you get an answer to your support question as quickly as possible. All right, so again, there's an example. We've packaged up a process, a very simple process like support, We've given it a name, and now everyone can explain what happens in the support process. Okay, LIFT, very, very simple. Listen, investigate, follow up, treat. Everyone can now remember it, from the CEO through to the receptionist. So if somebody rings up and says, I'm following up on a support call, even the receptionist can go, okay, so whereabouts are you at in our support process? Have you logged the call? Listen. Have we started investigating it? Have you had a follow-up call from one of our team? Are you waiting on somebody to come out for the deployment or the treatment? So again, makes it very, very easy for everybody to remember. So a couple of different examples there of how this concept of packaging your business works. And then once again, every single one of these things, you can write white papers about the reason why you have this process, what happens during each stage of the support process. People are genuinely interested in this kind of thing, and that's what will help you differentiate your business from everybody else's. Imagine you now have all these processes. You have your 3-step business process review, which occurs during the sales cycle. You have your 5-step implementation process, which remember we called rapid, right? That's how you do the deployment. And then after that, we have our 4-step support process called LIFT. So now if I'm a prospect, I'm now beginning to think that you're professional. You've given some thought to this. You have standard ways of doing each one of these things. So I'm going to feel more comfortable. I'm going to trust you a heck of a lot more. We talked about, as we build these processes, we talked about the concept of packaging up information. We talked about the importance of using information as a marketing tool, creating marketing materials that sell, if you like. Think about what is going through the mind of your potential customer. What are the concerns that they have? What is the information that they need that's going to make them like and trust you? And how do you then package that up and present it to them? Give you some examples from different industries that might stimulate your thought processes. So let's say, for example, you were a firm of solicitors, lawyers, attorneys, depending on what country you're in, what name you give to members of the legal profession. So one of the things that you might, white paper that you might write might be something like, I don't know, for example, it might be, the 10 things that you need to do to get every drop of value, to squeeze every drop of value from your attorney. Another thing might be, I gave you an example, the 5 key things you need to determine when choosing a new ERP solution. The 3 things that will tell you when your business is ready for business intelligence. So think about all of those questions that your potential customers may have. Now, here's a quick point. How many of you actually have a frequently asked questions area on your website? A lot of partners, I look at their websites, they don't have it. People come to you, why? Because they've got questions, they're looking for information. I guarantee you, if you put up a frequently asked questions area on your website, it will be one of the most heavily trafficked areas on your website. Why? Because people are looking for information. They've got questions they want answers to. And chances are that question might have been asked by somebody else already. So first thing they're going to go to is the frequently asked questions. So then think about, how do I then take that frequently asked questions and then turn that into a series of these documents? The 5, again, the example that we use for our rapid implementation methodology, the 5 steps you need to have to ensure that your business management system is deployed on time and on budget. These are the kinds of documents that people are going to want to receive from you. They're the kinds of ways of packaging up information that is going to continue to build that relationship between you and a prospective customer, and again, build that trust. So think about all of those different areas, those different things which your people know, which you could convert into those kinds of documents which can then be used as part of a nurturing campaign. You could even build a complete campaign around it. Maybe it's, the 3 things. Let's say, for example, you have determined one of your key target markets is high-tech manufacturers. You could write a white paper, which is the 3 things that high-tech manufacturers need to know about maintaining effective records during the manufacturing process. So think about the business challenge, how have you solved that business challenge, and then write a document about that. Best people to go to for this kind of information is your consultants. Now, consultants are, by definition, they are the people in your organization who have the most credibility. But they're also probably the people in your organization who are the busiest. So one of the things that I would recommend to you is that rather than saying to your consultants, hey, you've got to sit down and write this out, go through an interview process with them. Get together with the consultant. Shouldn't take any more than about 5 minutes. Ask them a couple of questions. Ask them to explain in briefly the process to you. As long as you get a straw man or a skeleton for the details behind the issue, you can usually then give that to somebody who can then write that up. Now remember, in the earlier session I showed you the Pulse Pen, the LiveScribe system. Again, you can utilize that same process for capturing what the consultant is saying, capturing your notes, and then going back and reviewing it and wordsmithing it up into a document. All right, so a couple of hints and tips as to how you can do that. Now you've got some homework to do. What's your homework as a result of going through this session? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to do an identity element audit. So what do I mean by that? Again, remember, think about your logo, your business name, your colors. Think about the proposals you do. Think about the presentations you give. Think about the way your people present. What do they wear? How do they articulate what your business is about? Do you have consistency across all of those things? Does each one of those interactions with a customer, does it contribute to your message? Does it align with your core marketing message, or does it detract from it? So you need to go through and look at those things, not just so you can say, well, gee, I've done that, but then so you can take action. Second thing you need to do is spend some time, and again, this is a great exercise to do with your entire team. Spend some time thinking about all of those different ways that you can package up your processes and then articulate, then take those processes, document what they are, and turn the documentation of those processes into marketing materials that educate.